Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank the lady for yielding me this time. Thank you very much. I do have some prepared remarks here, which I don't tell my staff that I'm not going to use them. I want to speak just a little bit about what I just heard and what I think some of our challenges are in this great country of ours. And it is a great country. Does not need to be made great again. Our problem is making this greatness accessible and affordable for all of its citizens. And I think one of the ways that we do that is to recognize that we have a shared history in this country, but it's a history that is spotted with a lot of inequities, inequalities, and a lot of things that we ought to be about the business of working to try and level off the so-called playing field. And one of those, I think, is really about the ability to communicate. When we talk about Juneteenth, I often equate the history of Juneteenth with our country's inability to communicate. Because after the Emancipation Proclamation signed by Abraham Lincoln in 1862 to be effective January 1, 1863, freeing all the slaves in the former the Union states, former slave states not under Union control. Now, when that happened, there was a big meeting down on the banks of a river in Beaufort County, South Carolina, near Port Royal. 4,000 slaves came to listen to General Saxton read the Emancipation Proclamation. On that day, they were freed. However, it was June 19th, 1865, 2.5 years later, before it was communicated to those who were enslaved in Texas. The failure to communicate kept them in slavery for another 2.5 years. The failure to communicate is what seems to keep us from coming together as one people today. If we learn the lessons of history, as George Santayana once said to us, when we learn the lessons of history, we are bound to repeat them if we don't. So I would hope that as we turn this piece of legislation into law and create a national holiday for Juneteenth, I hope we'll keep a couple of things in mind. It's not lost on me that this building that we all meet in was built by slaves. And one of the little-known facts was a man named Philip Reed, who was enslaved in Charleston, South Carolina, and who came after being bought to Washington, D.C., worked in the foundry. And the statue on top of this building, Lady Liberty. When the foundry made the statue of Lady Liberty, they couldn't get it up on top of the building. All of those learned people who had been free all of their lives could not figure out how to get that statue on top of this building. Philip Reed, enslaved, figured it out. And he showed them how to get that statue on top of this building. He was able to communicate some lessons that only he could teach, though he was unlearned. In fact, it was against the law to even teach him to read. and his name was Reed, spelt a little differently, but his name. Now, I would hope that we would pass this law. I suspect we won't do what the Senate did and did it unanimously, though I think it will be a tremendous demonstration of unity for every one of us to vote to pass this law recognizing June 19th as a national holiday. Madam Speaker, I reluctantly yield back the balance of my time.